Hi, fans of high quality entertainment. So I came across this 50 greatest solo artist in rock history from 2023. And I was wondering if I had already done a reaction to this, but I didn't. And so I thought it would just, it's just another way to talk about music. And I'm not necessarily gonna, uh, criticize the ranking of these artists. It's just, like I said, a way to talk about artists. Although, maybe the top 10. If there's certain artists that I don't like in the top 10, I won't be happy. And as always, please remember to thumbs up the video. If you ever see the hype that's at the bottom of some videos, please click that if you enjoy the video. Don't click it if you don't enjoy the video. But that does really help my channel if you see that and click on it. And also, leave a comment below and make sure you're subscribed to both of my channels. And peace to everybody. Here we go. Okay, Robbie Robertson from the band. I've never had any of his solo albums, but I did hear his first one, which was excellent. I would like to actually get that sometime. And of course, all of his work with the band, so good to see him in the list. Great guitarist, too, of course. I'm not going to complain. It's Ted Nugent. Yeah, I actually do think he's a great guitarist. He was great in the Amboy Dukes. I enjoyed his early albums, like Cat Scratch Fever, Free for All. And then later on, I moved on. But yeah, Ted Nugent. Let's move on. It's Cutie Pie, Peter Frampton. Yeah, of course, he was in, a couple of bands, including Humble Pie. Big fan of Humble Pie. Great guitarist. I think he's very underrated. His solo career, of course, I bought Frampton Comes Alive when it came out, just like everybody else did. And then I bought the follow-up, I'm in You, which kind of turned me off of his solo career, but still, very talented guitarist and just talented. And of course, he worked with David Bowie and played with him on one of David Bowie's tours. So here we go. Number 47. Yep, Eric Clapton. Of course, my favorite thing about Eric Clapton is the band he was in for one album, Blind Faith. It's one of my all-time favorite albums. I never really got into his, buying his solo albums though. But that being said, I think he's, of course, a great talent. And I do like a lot of the songs I have heard by him. So he's number 47. Hey, it's the Stoner. David Crosby. Yeah, I liked him in Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young. One of my favorite songs from that era is Almost Cut My Hair. And of course, he was in The Byrds. So, very talented once again. Yeah, I know a lot of you probably like Sting and The Police, and I did buy the debut album by The Police and maybe one other album, their final one. Never got into his solo career. Just for me, not enough interest to be a fan. But of course, once again, very talented. It's Steve Winwood. Once again, he was in Blind Faith and of course Traffic. Never really followed his solo career except for, hearing a couple of his hits on the radio. Yeah, Spencer Davis Group, of course, where he started out. And his brother, in case you don't know, Muff Winwood, produced Sparks' third and fourth albums, Kimono My House and Propaganda. So kind of a cool connection there. Yeah, I never got into Ronnie James Dio, his solo career, or even his time in Black Sabbath. I know he, amazing singer, of course, but as I've said many times, I'm such an Ozzy fan with Black Sabbath that I didn't follow Black Sabbath after Ozzy left. But of course, once again, a great talent. Stevie Nicks, yep, I like Stevie Nicks. I did buy her Belladonna album when it came out and enjoyed that. And of course, her work with Fleetwood Mac. My favorite Fleetwood Mac albums are the self-titled, Rumors, and my favorite is Tusk. Roy Orbison, one of the greats. I don't have anything by him, but and of course he was in the Traveling Wilburys. Yeah, all of his songs all of his hit songs I love. I think he was an amazing singer, and I should get some, like a greatest hits or something at some point, or, compilation. Joan Jett never really got into the band she was in, the Runaways, or her solo career. But all I know from her is, I love rock and roll. But, I'm not putting her down, just not my thing, man. George Michael, great talent once again. Of course, never really bought anything by him or Wham, but, he had a very solid solo career, and I did enjoy some of the songs I heard on the radio. Yeah, Lou Reed, as some of you know, he's in my, I don't know what he was on my list, my recent list of top 10 solo artists, but he was near the top. I have everything by Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground. Love Lou Reed. But I understand, I get it that, some people can't stomach his vocals or whatever, but I love Lou Reed. James Taylor? Yeah. There was a point in the late 70s where I was into James Taylor. I bought JT, which included that big hit Handyman, and the follow-up Flag, and I loved both albums. And then I bought Daddy Loves His Work, which I thought was kind of mediocre, and so I kind of gave up on him, but still, a great talent. Curtis Mayfield, I've heard music by him, never bought anything, but obviously all of these artists are talented. Except Ted Nugent. Just joking. Sammy Hagar never followed his solo career and never was interested, in his time with Van Halen. But once again, I like him as a person, and he's talented. Otis Redding, great talent. Sitting on the dock of the bay. Very sad that, he passed away in late December in December 1967. This is getting depressing, all of these people passing away. But yeah, I don't have any of his music. Linda Ronstadt, not my bag, man, but once again, talented. Bob Marley, yeah, I need to get some Bob Marley, Mon. Thank you. Yeah, I really do like Bob Marley, and I would like to get either, I always prefer studio albums as opposed to, best ofs or compilations. But maybe let me know a couple of Bob Marley albums that I should get. I love Joe Walsh, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, his solo career. I only have his first 4 studio albums, but definitely love Joe Walsh. Unfortunately, he's in the Eagles. Just joking. And once again, a great guitarist. And, he was in the James Gang. I never bought the James Gang albums, but I wouldn't mind getting them. Never really got into Jackson Browne. Tina Turner. I've got Ike and Tina Turner, What You Hear Is What You Get, a great double live album from the early 70s. I never bought any of her solo albums, but she was one of the greats for sure. Alice Cooper. I never really bought any of his solo albums, but the Alice Cooper Band I love. Ooh, George Harrison. Yeah, as some of you know, I've become a huge fan of his solo career. I mean, I've always really liked it, but I'm just a bigger fan than ever. And he would be much higher in my ranking. Top 10. Little Richard, one of the greats, but I don't have any of his music. Chuck Berry, I'm certainly not a fan of his personality and some of the kind of things he did in his life that I don't want to get into. But of course, he's Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Chuck Berry. All three of them are the fathers of rock and roll. Peter Gabriel, I loved him in Genesis, and I bought his first 3 solo albums, which are great. And then I never really, later he became even more famous with the So album and everything. And I love the songs, but I just, stopped buying his music. I was a big fan of John Cougar Mellencamp. Yeah, in the 80s and 90s. I bought quite a few of his albums, and then there was just a point where I was done with them. John Lennon, of course, in my top 10 for sure. Probably my favorite singer of all time. I would like to get probably a compilation of James Brown, because I love his music. Just don't have any of it. Love Elvis Costello, especially the early years up to, I guess, Spike. And then, some of his later albums are very good too, but I just prefer the early years. Shame on me, I never got into Ozzy's solo career. But just like most of us, I love Ozzy. Robert Plant, I bought a couple of his solo albums. Now and Zen was one of them. I think his career, even though I haven't been buying most of his albums, I think he's had just a great career. I think he's very respected in music. He's done, as much as he's done with Led Zeppelin, he's done so much more afterwards. And so once again, he is one of the greats. I love Paul Simon, one of the greatest songwriters ever. And I want to get his whole discography. I've only got his his second album, Paul Simon, and then a couple of others. And of course, I love Simon and Garfunkel also. Ray Charles, of course. I've never bought any Ray Charles, but one of the greats. Marvin Gaye, I bought the single for Sexual Healing. I love that song, but never bought any of his music. Billy Joel. I know he's struggling with health issues lately, which is kind of sad, but I was a fan for quite a few years, up until his album The Bridge, which I thought was kind of mediocre. But through the years, I bought quite a few of his albums, and I was a fan. Not today, but I still like him. Johnny Cash, everybody loves Johnny Cash. Watch somebody comment, I hate Johnny Cash. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, American 4, The Man Comes Around is my favorite Johnny Cash album, and he's great. Elvis Presley, I don't have any Elvis Presley. I have in the past. I think I had a greatest hits compilation or whatever, but I never played it. But I also think he was one of the greatest stage performers ever. So I totally respect Elvis Presley. He is one of the greats. Aretha Franklin, never bought any of her music, but she's one of the greats. Tom Petty, I bought Damn the Torpedoes when it came out. I enjoyed it. I love a lot of his hit singles, but I just never, bought his solo albums. You can't buy everything. So you have to focus on what you really, really, and that's what I'm learning as I get older. It's like focus on the artist that you're going to be playing, right, in your CD collection. Paul McCartney, he's number one for me. Bruce Springsteen, I was a fan. Well, I still like him a lot. Of course, Born to Run. My favorite album of his is Tunnel of Love. And then there's Darkness on the Edge of Town, The River. So yeah. All I have by him is Tunnel of Love, but still, I like Bruce. Elton John, kind of similar to Billy Joel. I did buy Elton John albums in the 70s, maybe not so much in the 80s, and super talented. But I would just, for me, at this time of my life, I'd rather listen to other music. Stevie Wonder, I did buy Songs in the Key of Life. It took me a minute to remember, which I enjoyed, of course, but I never really got into his solo career. But he's one of the greats. Jimi Hendrix. Love Jimi Hendrix, especially in the past few months when I've really gotten into his albums with the Jimi Hendrix Experience and, Band of Gypsies also. One of the greats. Neil Young. Yep, I love Neil Young. I bought a lot of his albums. Through the years, I saw him in concert about 12 years ago. He was excellent. My favorite albums are Rust Never Sleeps. I also love Trans, which a lot of fans don't care for, and Landing on Waters. Some of his weirder albums, and then, Harvest, of course. And so maybe the first half of his career, I know he's, still pumping out the albums, which I really don't have any interest in anymore, but the first half of his career is excellent. David Bowie, big fan. I've got everything by David Bowie. Prince, I bought, of course, Purple Rain, and then the follow-up, 80 Days Around the World, or whatever it was called. And I really enjoyed those, but I don't know, I just kind of stopped buying his albums, but I consider him truly like a musical genius and one of the greatest guitarists, right up there with Jimi Hendrix. Number 1, Boom Dylan. Yeah. I wouldn't have him at number 1 for me personally, but he is, one of the greats, and I love a lot of his music. Not everything. I'm not a huge fan like some people are, but I've bought his albums throughout the years and enjoyed some more than others, but he's number 1. So who's missing? How about Frank Zappa? That's one. But yeah, I would consider him a solo artist because it was, his name throughout, after the Mothers of Invention, it was mainly Frank Zappa. So he's definitely one missing. Who else is missing? Let me know in the comment section below. And that is it. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.